Joining us on this week on the London Theatre Review is Anoushka Lucas, here to talk about the return of her one-woman show Elephant, or one-woman, one-piano show Elephant. Anoushka, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello.
Hello, hello. I first saw Elephant at the Bush when it premiered 2 years ago, I think, and
3 years ago,
3 years
first
ago.
one. Yeah.
Okay, and now it's back at the Menier. Well, I've seen you describe it as political autofiction. Could you could you unpack that for us a bit?
Yeah, it's sort of a typical one person show in that it's very autobiographical. But what I really wanted to explore was the conflict between the color of my skin and my class and the way that I present as very middle class, but come from a sort of more working class mixed race background.
Yeah.
And I was really inspired by all of the political autofiction that I read across the pandemic, books like Afua Hirsch and Akala, Emma Dabiri, and I sort of realized that the only way that you can talk about, well, not the only way, but potentially the best way to talk about racism in our society is to talk about your lived experience. So this is a play about my lived experience, and it's heavily autobiographical, but it's also about the British middle classes and the class system in general, and how we are raising our children.
And it's also about music, isn't it?
It's,
As I
yeah,
say,
very
it's a
deeply about music.
one woman, one piano music show, but also draws on your experience in the music business, doesn't it? Because you were well, you were a musician before you became an actor.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a good 10 years. I started playing the piano when I was 7. I started writing songs when I was 14. I got some like pleasant, positive feedback from my parents' friends, and I was like, great, this seems pretty straightforward. I'll become a singer-songwriter. By the time I'm 25, I'll have 5 Grammys, 2 messy divorces, and then 10 Grammys by the time I'm 30. And then I launched myself into the music industry age 21 and spent 10 years sort of getting horribly close to signing record deals that fell through and winning various competitions and recording and self-releasing my own CDs. And yeah, I always tell people that I'm like a failed failed pop star because while I was doing that, I was really struggling to make any money. And I met a playwright who was like, have you ever been told that your songs are very sort of theatrical? And I was like, oh, yeah, they tell me that all the time.
Mm.
Said, well, I'd love for you to write some songs for my play. And then I ended
This was
up
Che Walker, wasn't it?
Jay Walker,
Whose
yeah.
influence through the industry is actually astronomical, isn't it? The number of
Oh
people
my,
whose careers he's
yeah, he
encouraged or
has an
touched.
incredible, particularly in my generation, he had an incredible eye for, you know, early on when I was in my early 20s, he used to curate these evenings where people could just come and perform 10-minute slots, eventually scratch nights. And I think about who was there now, and it was like Michaela Cole, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, me, Amanda Wilkin, and it was just a hotbed of talent that he was
Mm.
encouraging. So yeah,
Yeah.
he got me into the industry, and then basically theatre became my side hustle while I was trying to be a musician. And then at a certain point, it flipped around, and now music is my side hustle while I work in theatre.
Absolutely. So tell me, how did Elephant come about? Because you were, I mean, did it begin when you'd already, so, just done some sort of straightforward acting roles and thought, I want to take more agency or I want to tell a personal story?
No, in sort of classic keeping with the whole of my career, it was somebody else's suggestion. Um, I had been in a show at the Bush, Lynette Linton's first show in 2019, and we got on really well, like a house on fire, and had a lot of sort of overlapping life experience. And then in 2020, in the lockdown, when George Floyd was murdered, the Bush got in touch with myself and 4 other writers, all of sort of different global majority backgrounds. And everything was online, none of the theatres were open, and they were like, we want to curate a response to what's happening around the world. So you've got 5 days, write anything that you want, create a video that is under 10 minutes long, and we'll post it on the Bush socials and call it the protest. And I sat down to write a song because I'm pretty sure they expected me to write a song and I expected me to write a song. And then quite quickly, I was like, this doesn't really work because songs are really pretty and they have a meter and a rhyme scheme. And then I'm going to post a video of myself singing it, and I've got quite a nice voice. And I was like, this doesn't really convey how messy unpicking the legacy of racism in my life is. And so I ended up writing a speech about things that I'd never spoken about before, because I always thought I was too privileged to comment. And I was like, it's not my place to talk about the way racism has impacted my family.
Mm.
And I wrote this speech, and the Bush were like, we love this, let's include it. And then it went viral.
Right.
And it went viral on a Thursday or a Friday. And then they called me up on the Monday and they said, look, there's a huge appetite for what you've written. Have you ever thought about writing a play? And I was like, no. But it was peak pandemic, and I am basically a theatre actor, so I was completely out of work. And they offered me a bit of money to write a play. And being the chancer that I am, I was like, yeah, okay. I mean, how hard can it be? And it turns out really, really hard.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Has it changed much since 2019? Sorry, not 2019.
So
When
it's
did you say
2020, the big one was
2020?
2023, and
Yeah.
the first one was 2020. It
I looked
has,
back at my earlier review and it said it was 60 minutes then and it's 90 minutes now, isn't it? Is that right?
yeah,
So
it's
there's
got a bit
more in
long.
it.
It's 25 minutes longer. All of the songs have been extended because I was so nervous about writing a play because obviously I'd never shared any of my prose writing before that I really over focused on it, and I was quite arrogant about writing the music because I write songs all the time. So I
Mm.
wrote all of the songs for it in the 2 weeks rehearsal, having spent 2 years writing the play. So I always knew that the music just wasn't good enough the first time.
Yeah.
So we've spent a lot of time extending all the songs and making sure they like earn their piece, and also weaving the music the whole way through it because the piano is so instrumental. I was like, every moment of music has to be meaningful, not a transition. It has to
Yeah.
be part of the storytelling. And then there's a different ending. We've done this show 3 times, and there's been a different ending 3 times because it's sort of the beast that I can't quite make sense of it. I think we've got the best ending we've had so far, but I think if we did it 3 more times, it would get 3 different endings.
Okay. We should probably explain that the piano is a sort of stands as a sort of symbol or metaphor for colonialism, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's made out of mahogany and ivory. You know, it's made materials that have been trafficked by enslaved people.
Yeah.
And it is literally the sort of elephant in the room, isn't it? This big beast.
Totally.
Yeah,
My director calls it a two-hander between a girl and a piano. And I do
yeah,
feel like the piano is so central to it. And I think what I wanted to explore in the piano was, I guess, in our confrontation, our like collective confrontation of our history, we really struggle to hold conflicting ideas as being true. And I really wanted to be like, the piano has been for me a source of absolute safety and where I developed my ability for sort of self-expression. And I feel that the piano never requires me to be anything other than myself.
right.
At the same time, the piano is also built out of the legacy of colonialism, and it needs to be okay that both of those things are true. We can't just sort of paint everything in a moral, well, this is all fine and everything's fine, like, or this is all terrible and we should be ashamed of it and throw it out. Like, I really don't want anybody to leave my show and throw their piano away. But
Right.
I would love for them to go home, look at their piano and think, I haven't really thought about where stuff comes from, whether
Yes.
that's like thoughts or objects.